And then there were two states where the disgraced, twice impeached, 4 times indicted ex-president has been kicked off the ballot, or at least kicked off the ballot pending appeal. More proof that Donald J. Trump is having a hard time shaking the I word, insurrection, and that the Republican frontrunner is heading into the new year with Section 3 of the 14th Amendment nipping at his heels. First, there was Colorado. Now it's Maine saying that Trump is disqualified from being on the ballot. And let's not forget that more than a dozen other states with the 14th Amendment have cases pending. 14th Amendment cases. Now, this new ruling from Maine Secretary of State is as fiery as it is somber. Quote, I conclude, as did the Colorado Supreme Court, that the record establishes that Mr. Trump, over the course of several months and culminating on January 6, 2021, used a false narrative of election fraud to inflame his supporters and direct them to the Capitol to prevent certification of the 2020 election and the peaceful transfer of power. I likewise conclude that Mr. Trump was aware of the likelihood for violence and at least initially supported its use, given he both encouraged it with incendiary rhetoric and took no timely action to stop it. The weight of the evidence makes clear that Mr. Trump was aware of the tinder laid by his multiple-month effort to delegitimize a Democratic election and then chose to light a match. I do not reach this conclusion lightly. Democracy is sacred, and the highest court of this state has repeatedly recognized that no right is more precious in a free country than that of having a voice in the election of those who make the laws under which, as good citizens, we must live. I am mindful that no Secretary of State has ever deprived a presidential candidate of ballot access based on Section 3 of the 14th Amendment. I am also mindful, however, that no presidential candidate has ever before engaged in insurrection. To nobody's surprise, Donald Trump threw a little temper tantrum over Maine's decision to give him the boot. But he did not just stop there, folks. He went on his social media site where he posted a link directing his followers to the Maine Secretary of State's official website, a website that lists her phone number and address. I wonder what Donald Trump possibly could have wanted to achieve by posting that. We're going to let you draw your own conclusions. But if past is prologue, the Maine Secretary of State could soon be on the receiving end of not just complaints from Trump loyalists, but threats, as we saw with the Colorado Supreme Court justices who received an onslaught of death threats following their ruling. Now, it is worth noting that this new ruling out of Maine and the ruling out of Colorado, that they are both still in legal limbo. The Colorado Republican Party has already done Trump a solid by appealing that state's ruling to the Supreme Court. And the former president has vowed to appeal this new ruling out of Maine. Meanwhile, Donald Trump did notch a win in the Democratic stronghold of California, where the Secretary of State ruled that Donald Trump can stay on California's GOP primary ballot. There are a lot of moving parts, but this one thing is clear, folks. This new ruling out of Maine, it proves that no matter how much the ex-president wants to wish it all away, the 14th Amendment is very much a clear and present danger to Donald Trump's efforts to return to power. And that is where we start with the aforementioned Maine Secretary of State, Shanna Bellows. Madam Secretary, I want to thank you so much for being here. And I actually want to start by asking you about something that I just mentioned in our setup. Are you and your team receiving any threats? And just not in the wake of your ruling, but specifically in the wake of the ex-president posting a link to your official website with your contact information?
First, thank you for having me. I deeply appreciate it. And I just want to share that my decision is about the rule of law and the Constitution. And that is my only consideration. And this is part of the process here in the state of Maine. And I hope everyone will be civil, will be respectful, and will follow the process and follow the law.
Madam Secretary, I watched you on our network.
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. There's a delay.
I'm sorry.
I just wanted to note, I watched you on our network and others last night in the aftermath of your ruling, and you very much so, just as you laid out in your decision, you went through great lengths to just explain your process. You use somber language in the decision, and in your conversations last night and just now with me. And I'm just wondering, given all of the lengths that you've gone through, I know you take this very seriously, what the former president did yesterday. I mean, I can't infer what his reasoning was behind it, but do you feel like you are in any danger, and are you all receiving any threats given the post that he made?
I'm not comfortable discussing my own personal security, and indeed, my own security and safety is not a consideration in this matter. We are a country of laws, and our oath that we swear is to support the Constitution of the United States and the laws of our country. And so as we engage in this process, what is important is the meaning of the Constitution, the facts before us, and that interpretation. And there can be no other consideration. And I think that's really important, that this process is a legal process. The United States Constitution gives states the authority to administer elections. And states, in turn, can pass laws delegating that authority, which the Maine legislature has done to the Maine Secretary of State. And that is why Maine voters have the right to bring a challenge to any candidate's qualifications, and they did so. And we held a hearing on December 15th, and I made a decision because I was obligated to by the law and the oath that I took to the Constitution. And the next step is to the Superior Court, and then to the Maine Supreme Judicial Court, and then potentially the U.S. Supreme Judicial Court. That is our process. That is the rule of law. That is what we need to uphold and follow, no matter what.
Can we talk a little bit more about your decision? You suspended your decision until a court rules on any appeal, which means that Trump's name stays on the ballot for now. Why did you build that into your decision and your ruling?
Given the compressed timeline, given the novel constitutional questions, and given the complexities of ballot preparation, it's important to follow the process. So the Superior Court has a deadline of January 17th to issue a ruling should Mr. Trump appeal. And that's why I suspended the effect of my decision until the Superior Court rules or until that appeals period expires.
In this ruling, you also seem to preemptively take aim at something critics of yours are already seizing upon, that you are a Democrat. And you write, quote, "My decision is based exclusively on the record before me, and it has in no way been influenced by my political affiliation or personal views about the events of January 6th. Madam Secretary, what do you say to those out there who are doggedly insisting that your finding is politically motivated?
I encourage everyone to read my decision just as you have and to assess those arguments. I made my decision exclusively based on the evidence at that hearing and the record in this proceeding, because that's my obligation. So my political affiliation, my personal views of the events of January 6, 2021 have no bearing on that. They can't.